Welcome back to Close Up. A major development in the race for mayor of Manchester this month. The incumbent Joyce Craig announced she is endorsing Kevin Cavanaugh, a former state senator and one of 3 aldermen seeking the corner office at City Hall. We sat down with Alderman Cavanaugh last week, but all of the developments around the indictment of former President Trump ended up shuffling last Sunday's program, so we're airing Cavanaugh's interview this Sunday. So what does it mean to get the backing of the 3-term incumbent in what could be a very competitive race here?
It means everything to me. First of all, personally, the mayor and I have known each other since we're 13 years old. It's been an honor to serve with her in the last 6 years on the board. And she's won some tough races in Manchester. She knows how to win. And on the other side of that, working with her closely in these past 6 years, we've done a lot for the city. And so personally and professionally, it means very grateful to have that endorsement.
What about those who might want some change in this election? What are you going to do differently from Mayor Craig?
Well, you know, I think we all bring our different backgrounds, right? I started working when I was 19 years old. I was blue-collar worker for 32 years. I'm going to bring that forward in my perspective, how we can help working people and people of Manchester. I've coached in this city. I've coached Little League football, and I understand, and I want to give back. You know, for 8 years, I've served on the board, and there's a lot more we can do. So many people have helped me in either coaching or teachers. They've helped my wife, my kids, friends and family across the city. And I think there's always a different perspective, and I'm excited to bring my perspective of that.
What about on the homeless issue? What would you do differently from what the city's doing now?
Well, I think if we talk about homeless, we have to talk about housing. We have 2,000 units that we're working on now. It's a start, and it's a slow process. What I would like to see happen is, usually with city government, working with builders to see how we can speed up that process to get them to market quicker. I think that's one thing, not to blame anyone, but I think what I've always done in coaching or work is bring people together. You get more done together than you do apart. And I would like to see that process speed it up. And if we can do that with zoning and approval processes, I think that's going to be a great step.
We often talk about affordable housing. You think big developments and apartments, and Manchester's doing that. What about infill? What can the city do to make sure that existing properties could add space if they want to or need to?
Well, when I was serving the state senate for 5 years, we worked on that too, about ADU units. I think we can do that. To get younger, I have 3 young kids now. They're not young, but I want them to stay here. And how do we do that? You can keep young people, make more affordable to add those little apartments onto houses, and also to keep seniors in their housing. We want that great mix in Manchester. That's what I want to see, and I think we can do that with more zoning. And they're looking at that now to really add that area where you can add those ADU units on. I think that's be very helpful.
Circling back to the homelessness issue, do you agree with that court decision that essentially said if the services aren't there, people can basically live their lives on a sidewalk?
I think everyone has the right for the sidewalk. If I want to walk down there, I think I should be able to use that. And we are offering services, and I don't like seeing people camped out living in tents. These are humans, these are people's kids and parents, and I want to help them. But we've got to do it in a way that we can all work together and feel safe. I mean, that's the ideal part of this. I really want to thank, first of all, the police and firefighters that are on the ground with this. They're dealing with this every day, and they're the first line for us to deal with the homelessness. And honestly, that's why I'm so proud to have the endorsement of the police and firefighter unions.
Public safety, obviously another big issue in this campaign. You just had a daytime robbery of Petco at like 9:45 in the morning. Obviously, you know, police are working hard on this, but what's the plan to deal with violent crime and gun crime in Manchester?
Well, what we've done on the board, and I've worked closely with the mayor too to do that, what we've done to increase the complement of police, we've increased that by 33, and again, the men and women of the police force are doing a wonderful job. I can't remember the exact percentage, but crime is down 38%, but any crime is too much. You know, we've got to continue that. We've got to support the police with the complement increases, and also technology that we've given them to protect themselves, but also make it easier to or help prevent crime, but solve the problems that we do have.
You've identified education policy as a top priority of yours in this campaign. What's going to be the hallmark of your approach, if you become the mayor, to city schools, sort of the #1 thing you want to be known for on that front?
They're going to name a school after me? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm just saying,
I know.
People think about, okay, Mayor Cavanaugh is doing X for city schools. What is it?
First of all, I was born and raised here. I went to public schools here. My 3 kids went through public schools here. I'm proud of the public school system in Manchester. In the state senate, we had the biggest the public education bill we sent back to the cities and towns was the biggest in New Hampshire history. We have to help them, and I want to give them the resources, everything they need. When I came out of school at Manchester Memorial High School, I was 19 and went to the workforce, and I had a career for 32 years where I was able to buy a house, raise a family, and I want every kid in this city to have that opportunity. Whether you graduate and you want to go to a four-year school, you want to go to a trade school, I want our children to be ready for that choice they make when they're graduating high school.
How about commuter rail? Do the benefits for Manchester outweigh the costs for the whole state that they'll eventually have to bear? You know this from being a state senator that you mentioned, your service there in Concord. You know, the idea that a taxpayer up in Woodsville is going to have to fund the benefit of the commuter rail in Manchester. Is that worth it?
I'm all for the rail. I think it's the biggest municipality in the country that doesn't have it. We've looked at that. I look at the airport in Manchester. It's really the economic engine of the state. You can look at that. I used to have my office on the west side, and I'd come over Granite Street Bridge and see the line of traffic coming off there. You talk about improving the environment. Let's get some of those cars off there, and off the roads, and have people on the rail. And you look at the amount of businesses that were supportive. There was over 100 business owners that say, we need this. And I think it's a net profit for everyone. I really do. I think it's going to be great for the whole state, and like anything, like an economic engine, and it's going to be better for everyone in the state.
Do you think you'll be able to bring tax relief at all, property tax relief as mayor?
I think it's very important that, again, in the state, we deliver that 7.5% to the pension funds, which releases the burden for the cities and towns. I think we have to do that. It used to be around 30%. The state has to step up and do that, and I would love to work with them. You know, I've had across the aisle in the Senate, and I want to keep that going, and I want to use those relationships I have built in the city and state to promote Manchester.